Hello and welcome to another 10 to 20 with Tanya. I'm Tanya, and today I'm going to talk about how comprehensible input made a big difference in my second language learning. My second language is Spanish, and I am here teaching you English. And if you are here today and listening, then you are working on or practicing your English. So let's talk first a little bit about what comprehensible input is, and then I will tell you how I started using it and how it changed my language learning journey. So, first, I want to welcome you. If you are here live, or even if you're listening to the recording, where are you from and what do you know about comprehensible input? Where are you from and what do you know about comprehensible input? So, Espy is with me here today. So, hopefully, she will be quiet so I can tell you a little bit more about this. Comprehensible input is very simple, actually. We all use it a little, but the idea is to use it a lot, because when we use it a lot, of course, not of course, when we use it a lot, it can help us a lot. So, comprehensible input is when you read or listen to something in your target language. If you're learning English, then English is your target language. So when you read or listen to something where you understand 95% or more. Now, the idea is to understand as much as you can, but it isn't necessary to understand every word. In fact, the idea is to understand the meaning, the story, whatever it is you're listening to. So today, if you can understand most of what I'm saying, this is comprehensible input for you. Okay, so what is input? Input is anything that goes in. So Espy's going to get input with this little treat. Here you go, Espy. Now, this is not comprehensible input, obviously, with language learning, but input is what goes in, reading, listening. Output is what comes out, speaking, writing. Okay? So, if you don't understand all the words, are you really understanding? The answer is yes, because even in our native language, our goal isn't to be able to translate every word we know to another language, right? Our goal is to put those words together to understand what someone is saying or what we are reading or watching. So, this is what we want to do in English. How do you do this? This is as simple as finding things where you understand 95% or more. Books, newspapers, magazines. Of course, most of that is online now. YouTube videos, podcast, television shows, movies. And depending on your level, some of those are more accessible. Here's a good word, accessible, than others. Available and easy to find. Accessible. All right, so let's look and see who's watching us today. I see Turkey, Poland, Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Brazil, Italy. Welcome, everyone. Kazakhstan, from all over the world. It's great to have you here. Stephen Krashen is the linguist who has done a lot of research on this particular way of learning, and he has other great information. I put his name in the description below so that you could see how it is spelled. And if you want to do further research, this is a great idea to see what Stephen Krashen says about comprehensible input. But if you have questions today, go ahead and put them in the chat or down in the comments, and I will get to as many questions as I can. All right, Vladimir, thank you. Vladimir says, don't forget to hit that like. Thank you so much. This really does help me to make more videos. And if you follow or subscribe and tell your friends, that's also super helpful. Marana, hello from Rome. Welcome. I see Argentina and Ecuador here as well. Cuba, Georgia. This is great. So I decided to start learning Spanish many years ago, probably about 20, well, more than 20 years ago. And at that time, it was very difficult to find any materials at all unless you had lots of money to spend on those materials. And so it was very difficult for me to learn Spanish. It was very slow. Also, I was using the traditional method of trying to learn grammar and vocabulary lists. And while that can work for a very small percentage of people, for most people, there are things about it that work, but mostly it doesn't help us to speak and really understand how to use the language. Fast forward, in other words, come closer to the present day. And about 7 years ago, I realized that I could learn a lot on YouTube. And I saw my children learning things on YouTube and my friends learning things on YouTube. And I decided to see what I could find about Spanish. And I did find some great resources and again started learning the traditional way. And I did learn some Spanish the traditional way. I could speak a little, but the learning was very, very slow. Then about a year ago, yes, almost exactly a year ago. Now, I had been using comprehensible input and encouraging students to use comprehensible input in their practice when they're practicing English. But about a little over a year ago, I started to study more about it and look at what Stephen Krashen has to say, Pablo from Dreaming Spanish, and what he is teaching about it, and just finding more information about it, and realized that the idea or the study of comprehensible input, using it as a method, because we all use it in our practice, is to use this without studying grammar, without vocabulary lists. Now, I already knew that vocabulary lists really are not effective, meaning you could learn a vocabulary word, but it doesn't work well for you to remember the vocabulary and use the vocabulary. So tell me in the comments, depending on if you're live or recorded, listening to the recording, do you love grammar or do you love vocabulary list? Is this one of your favorite things or no? It's not one of your favorite things. Tell me one of your favorite things you like to do to learn English in the comments. And I'll tell you why, because finding what you love, finding what you really enjoy is also very important. And Stephen Krashen, this researcher, talks a lot about that. There are other researchers also who talk about that. But Stephen Krashen is known for comprehensible input and telling us we have to enjoy it. We have to be interested in whatever we are using. Most of the time. Sometimes I use things that I listen to just because it's in Spanish. For example, um, sports is not my favorite thing. I enjoy sports with friends. I enjoy knowing a little bit about sports, especially all over the world, but I don't watch sports very much in my native language, which is English. So in Spanish, I'm not that interested in it, but I do occasionally listen to it because it's in Spanish and I'm interested in learning Spanish and I'm interested in being able to talk to anybody about any topic. SB wants to bark about that. Okay, so let's see. Ola says, I like listening and watching to interesting things. Nurkan says, recently they've been listening. Malgorz, pardon me if I don't say your name correctly. Malgorzada says, I like listening online and I understand more and more. This is so true. Alim asks, where are you from? I am from the United States. I currently live in Southern California. And thank you for asking. I always forget to say that. So tell me, what do you like doing to learn? And who loves grammar or vocabulary lists? I'm going to tell you why, but first I want to give you a chance to type, or you can just hit the heart down there. Tap on that heart. So when I learned more and more about comprehensible input, I stopped using the other methods. And I was already not using vocabulary list very much. There is a time that it might be helpful, but very rarely. And I wasn't using grammar unless I really needed to, which is almost never. But I decided to really focus on listening to and reading things I understand. And suddenly, my ability to see my progress really changed. Before this, I knew I was progressing. I knew I was progressing because if we are practicing regularly, if we are listening to things we understand and speaking and those kinds of things, I have lots of information in other videos here on YouTube. If we're doing those things regularly, we are learning. But a lot of the times it feels like I don't feel like I'm learning. I don't feel like it's changing. But with comprehensible input, I could tell very quickly that my Spanish, my second language, was getting better very quickly, much faster than when I was just using a little comprehensible input and a lot of traditional methods. Okay, let's see. Vladimir says, thank you, Vladimir, for sharing my videos in your English club. And Rita says, I don't like studying grammar or a list of new words. I like to listen to interesting podcasts or to join interactive lessons. This is great. Nurkan asks, is SB a boy or a girl, a male or a female? She's female, although we say she's fixed. In other words, she can't have babies. So she's spayed is the word for that. So sometimes we say she's neither male or female because she's spayed. All right. So great. Irfan says, I am understanding every detail. This is a great way to learn. Now, not only did I notice that I could see my progress more easily, I noticed I could speak much more easily. Yes, that's correct. Much more easily. I had to check my own grammar than before. Now, why is this? Because for me, it was so interesting to listen to and read things that I'm interested in Spanish that I was getting a lot more comprehensible input. And instead of practicing 15 or 20 minutes a day, I was actually practicing 1 or 2 hours a day. Now, that isn't something that's sustainable. In other words, it's not something you can continue doing, or I could continue doing for a long, long time. But I noticed that doing about an hour a day for me is very sustainable. It's something I can keep doing because instead of watching or reading things in English, I was doing it in Spanish. And you've heard people say this before. If you've heard this before, type the word yes in the comments because I am sure you've heard this. If you haven't heard it, I'm glad to tell you. Read or listen to things in English instead of your native language, and this will help you to become more fluent. And have a drink of my tea. Perfect. But when teachers tell us that and we listen to things we don't really understand, it's not very enjoyable. So find things you do understand. I have a lot of information here on my YouTube, and you'll find links below for more videos so that you can see and watch, I should say, so that you can watch and understand. And I use a lot of English to help you understand. So this is a great way to use comprehensible input. Okay, I see a couple of yeses. This is grateful, or this is great to see. And so let me talk a little bit more about people who might really love grammar or vocabulary lists. I don't see anybody else saying that they love that yet, but there might be someone who does. And if you do, then go ahead and keep using it. If it's working, if you enjoy it and you really want to do that and you enjoy doing it regularly, like as many times per week, 3 times a week at least, but 5, 6, or 7 times a week is best, then keep doing that because part of this is finding what you enjoy. And then add a lot of comprehensible input to that. Vladimir says that he's watching the videos every day. They're very useful. Thank you, Vladimir. I really appreciate that. And also thank you for your comments or anything you're writing over here. This also really helps these live videos. And then you can find my recorded videos. This one will be recorded when I'm finished. And also, I have recorded videos where I tell stories and I put words, vocabulary on the screen and help you to understand them in the story. This is why we call it story learning. And story learning is super, super helpful and very effective. All right. Are there any last questions? If you have a question, write it in the comments or the chat, and I will try to answer that for you. But I did want to also tell you that I have a very exciting special coming on Black Friday. So in the United States, Black Friday is always the day after Thanksgiving. And I'm grabbing my phone because we never think of Black Friday as a certain date. We always think of it as the day after Thanksgiving, and this year is November 29th. On November 29th, I will be having a very exciting discount on my classes, and I will be looking forward to having the opportunity to meet some of you on Zoom. And so if you want more information about that, you can send me an email and say, I'd like to know about Black Friday specials. The email is below in the description. And also stay here on YouTube. I will be talking about it in my other YouTube videos and also on the things I post on YouTube and on Instagram. Okay. So Gallardo says, listening is my problem. I'm so glad you said this, Gallardo. Thank you for writing about this because a lot of people have this same difficulty. And what you need to do is spend more time listening to things you understand. It feels like, no, I need to listen to difficult things. But that is the problem. That causes a problem. Listen to things you understand a lot. For me, 1 or more hours every day, maybe 6 days a week. If I can't do it every day, I at least listen to 5 minutes or 15 minutes of something I understand. And little by little, you will understand more and the problem will be gone. This is so important. And I'm so glad you brought it up, Gallardo, because I know a lot of people have problems with this. Ursula, thank you. Ursula says that she was missing me. I didn't go live for a little bit because of different issues, but I am back live on Mondays at 9:30 a.m. Los Angeles, California time. And you can also see my recorded videos, my story learning videos on Wednesdays. If you check on Wednesdays, early in the morning, Los Angeles time, I put up those story videos so you can use comprehensible input and see your English grow and grow. Thank you for joining me today. If now you want to go ahead and use this method, you're going to find a list of videos below. And when YouTube lets me, I will put another one right here so that you can keep learning English and become more fluent. I'll see you in class.